And who doesn't want to be a millionaire? Everyone wants to be millionaires or at least make $1 million in their practice. I know that I did, but not everyone does because it takes a lot of work and an outstanding coach to get there. And so today we're going to be speaking with Ken Hardison, who is that outstanding coach. Ken Hardison is known as the Millionaire Maker for a reason. He's helped many, many lawyers across the country double, triple, or quadruple their law firm practices and income. He brings to law firm owners the insights, knowledge, and critical strategies of legal marketing and management that can only be learned in the trenches of real law firm success. And Ken has had that. Ken is the brainchild behind PILMA, which is Personal Injury Lawyers Marketing and Management Association, which was created after he built and sold 2 multi-million-dollar law firms. I can't wait to hear your story, Ken. So thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, let's just dive right in and let's talk about you as a lawyer first, because we all start there, right? And tell me about your law firms and how you got started, why you chose the kind of law you did, and ultimately why you decided to sell them.
Yeah. So I came up very, very poor. Good parents, but they just, one had a 4th grade education, one had an 8th grade education. So they did the best they could with what they had. And early on in life, I knew I wanted to own my own business, and I knew I wanted to be my own boss, even when I was probably in the 6th, 7th grade. I mean, I just had that feeling I did not want to work for the man.
Did your parents work for the man? Is that maybe why you thought,
Well, they were, yeah. My mother was a factory worker, sewing shirts up. Yeah, really hard work. My father worked in the lumber industry. So yeah, they used their brawn, not their brains, pretty much, to make a living, and they did good. We never went without a meal. And I got a lot of love and attention and stuff like that. But it was a modest way of being brought up. I started working odd jobs when I was 10 or 12 years old, and had a full-time job when I was in the 8th grade, all summer, and then after school. I was a butcher, and in high school and college, worked my way through college, worked my way through law school, and got out and went to work with this firm, and it didn't last but about 3 months. I quit. Yeah, I knew I didn't want to work for the man, right?
Yeah, for sure. What kind of law was that you started in?
It was personal injury. I had clerked with different law firms during the summer, and I really liked the injury law because I saw a lot of people getting really screwed over, and they really didn't understand it. And I liked the idea of getting a flat fee. Then you don't have to worry about keeping up with hours and all that stuff. And I'm not a detail person. Anybody that knows me well knows that I'm a broad brush. I'm an ideal guy. I'm a visionary, but when it comes down to getting in the weeds, meticulous stuff, probably not my forte,
Well, and keeping track of hourly billing, my goodness, that's a full-time job in and of itself.
Yeah. I worked with a firm that did some defense work. And man, it was like they had to keep up everything. And I said, man, that's just crazy,
So did you quit or did you get fired after 3 months?
I quit.
Okay.
What happened was I went to work and my whole life, everybody always said, Ken's a hard worker. I always thought I could outwork everybody, which was, I might not be smarter, but I could outwork them, That's the way I was raised, and that's the way I thought, which was really the wrong mindset.
It's good blue collar.
And I learned that later in life.
It's good blue collar. We all were raised that way, I guess.
Yeah. So I went with this. I never got accused of, I always got accused of overexceeding whatever expectations people had of me. And I took pride in that. So I went with this law firm, and they worked 6.5 days a week. We worked Monday through Saturday and Sunday after church.
Oh, my goodness.
He had a very, very big PI firm, and he ran it like a Wall Street firm as far as he expected you to work 80 hours a week, or more. And I did that for 2 or 3 months. And then Carolina was playing Clemson. They were both ranked in the top 10 in the country. And I had free tickets to go one Saturday. And I walked in and I said, we don't have a trial on Monday. I said, I want to take off Saturday and go to this football game. Imagine somebody in today's climate, you get laughed at. Why would I even ask to get off on a Saturday?
Right.
But that's the truth. That's the truth. And he said, I don't think so. And I walked back to my office and I sat down and I said, screw this. And I walked back in and I said, I'm giving my resignation. I said, I'm going to the football game. I said, I can work out a notice. I said, and not leave you hanging, or I can walk out right now. And I had no idea what I was going to do.
Sure.
But I just knew, I said, screw this. I'm not going to miss these tickets. I'm just going to go back home and start my own law firm. And that's what I did.
Some of the most significant and pivotal times in our lives are when we've made a decision, taken an action. We have no idea what's coming next. When I moved out of my parents' house, I was 17. I had gone out on New Year's Eve against parents' discretion and permission. I came in after midnight. Of course, it's New Year's Eve. I wanted to kiss somebody. And so I came in after midnight, and my mother's sitting there waiting. And basically, almost like you, I said, what are you going to do? Ground me? I'm moving out in 2 weeks. I had no idea where that came from or where I was going, but I said it. Yeah. And in 2 weeks, I moved out. So what happened after you told him that?
No, it reminds me of something. I didn't even tell this part of it. Between my junior and senior year of high school, my father got a job with a good raise, but he had to move an hour away, new school. And I was team captain of the football team, and I had a girlfriend. And I had a job. I was working, 40 hours a week at this grocery store, my butcher. So I was making good money for that area and that time of life. And I said, I want to stay. And my dad said, well, you can stay, but you're on your own. I'm not supporting you. Mm-hmm. And I did. They moved, and I got an apartment, $15 a week. That's what it cost me. And I had a little Volkswagen, and I stayed there, and I was pretty much on my own from then on. That was right between my junior and senior year. So I was about 17 too.
Yeah.
When that happened. So what did I do? I went back. I had $2,500 saved up, moved back to my hometown, and got this office and shared this office with this lawyer that was about 80 years old. And he rented it to me for like nothing. And I just went to every lawyer in town and said, you got any junk? You got anything, research, any cases you don't want? I'll take them. I said, I went and talked to them or ate lunch with them or breakfast whenever they would talk to me. Every lawyer in town, every lawyer in the county, I just made it a deal. And I did okay. I didn't really knock the world apart, but there was this older firm there that was, they did real estate work, and some defense work, although they had just quit doing defense work. And the law firm had been there since 1932. Mm. It was like 3 generations of family members. And the older man liked me, and he started getting me more involved in doing trials. And he said I was a good trial lawyer. I didn't think I was, but he said I was. And anyway, after about 2 years doing solo, they invited me over to be a partner, a third partner. Mm. And yeah, with no equity, I didn't have to pay anything. So yeah, that was a big deal for me.
That's a way to get in, for sure. Well, and you've highlighted another difference between you back then and sometimes people of today, lawyers of today. And that is, you had the grit. You went and talked with every lawyer in town. Lawyers just don't do that anymore. They might put a posting on Facebook that says, hey, I've lost my job. Does anybody know anything? Yeah. But nobody is knocking on my door asking me if I have jobs open. You know what I'm saying? And so it's a whole different level of determination. And maybe that's because you were on your own in high school. I don't know. Maybe it's just the product of the times, but that's what creates success. And so you became a partner without equity. That's cool. Without having to buy in.
Yeah. And we did good. And I kind of, using my experience, because I had worked with this other law firm and doing PI, and I liked PI. So I did PI, and I did low-level criminal stuff like I was really good at DWIs, and did that, did a little workers' comp, a little Social Security, and they did all the estate, domestic, and real estate. And I started writing letters and cross-marketing stuff and getting them to write letters and cross-market. Did we do this, we do this, we do that. And I built the firm up pretty good. I built it up to where in about 10 years, I was a 50% partner. I had two, they were 25. So I was bringing in 80% of the money too. Mm-hmm. So that kind of helps. But when you're bringing in 80%, they were bringing home more than they were bringing in the firm. And so I go to court one day and I got a DWI and I walk in.
Meaning you had a client that you were representing with a DWI. You did not yourself have a DWI. Okay.
No,
just wanted to make that clear for our listeners.
No. So I had this DWI case and guy walking in on crutches. I said, "What happened, Joe?" He said, "I got T-boned by a semi truck, a big transfer truck." I said, "Well, I do that." He said, "Yeah, I saw this guy on TV and I thought he must really be good if he's on TV." I said, "Oh shit." So I tried the case. And I'd already been seeing my numbers kind of like plateau, whereas we grew 10, 15% every year. And then like the last 2 years, it kind of plateaued. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't figure out what the hell was going on. And that kind of was like a lightning bolt, or like a big light bulb went off in my head. I said, this is what's going on. So I go back, I win the case, go back to my law firm. I call them a partners meeting. I said, we've got to start marketing, because all we had was a yellow page ad. That was it. Mm-hmm. And they said, no, it's unprofessional, it's unethical, So we had that conversation for about 6-7 months, and then I left.
Okay.
And took an associate and took 3 people with me. And I took everything I had and borrowed $500,000 and went on TV and went from doing 20 cases a month to 120 cases a month in about 6 months.
So let's just pause there for a second. Okay. Let's just pause, because what I heard you say was, I borrowed $500,000 so that we could do advertising. And I went from 20 cases to 120 cases a month. Let's just hold on, pause. Because so many lawyers say, I can't afford to hire an associate. You took 3 people with you. I can't afford to do whatever you want to do. And you leveraged so that you could then bring that in. Again, I want to highlight what a difference that makes, right? And so tell us how that went for you. I don't think you're bankrupt today. So tell us how that went for you.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we had our ups and downs, no lie about it. Here was the biggest problem I had, was that I was pretty good at marketing, and I studied under Dan Kennedy and John, there was nothing out there like Pilma or a lot of these companies now. I mean, it really wasn't in 96. Mm-hmm. So I went to other industries and went to their marketing stuff and took it, and I tried it, and some of it worked, some of it didn't. TV was really big, no doubt about it. Now it's impossible to get on TV and see that big a jump that quick. It's just not possible. So I thank God I was in that time and not today, because now it takes 12 to 2 years to start getting traction on TV, even with a big budget. But I got too many cases too quick, and I didn't have the infrastructure set up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know about systems, processes. I didn't know any of that stuff, and I really had to cut the TV off. And this woman walked into my life. She had been working with a firm up in Jacksonville, North Carolina, and they parted ways, and she was a systems geek. Mm-hmm. And I talked to her, and it's like, I said, God, you sent her here for me. I know you did, because I'm lost. And she really was the difference. No doubt. I always said she was my secret weapon, and she got it whipped into shape. Me and her together, because she was really good at the systems and management, and I was really good at marketing. Mm-hmm. And of course, I wasn't scared to take a risk, right? You know that.
Clearly not.
Yeah. So I would try new things, and some of them worked, some of them didn't. Mm-hmm. So we went from like doing $500,000 a year to doing like $6 or $7 million a year in like 5 years. Mm-hmm. We had our ups and downs though, because cash flow, when you have 100% growth a year for 2 or 3 years, you have big cash flow problems. Mm-hmm. They don't teach you that either.
Right.
Especially when you're using borrowed money, because then you have to pay income tax on phantom income that you really didn't make, but you didn't.
Hey, I do
so
know, unfortunately.
I'm not going to say it was easy. Okay.
But you did it, and you're the kind of person that rolls up your sleeves. So you borrowed the money, you had the staff, you did the marketing, you then found somebody to help you with the systems and processing. At some point, you probably started actually charting your matrix, your KPIs, and all that kind of stuff. How did that have any benefit or help your firm at all as you continue to grow?
Oh yeah. You got to know your numbers, and that was what also happened. Like 3 years in, my office manager or whatever, she started dating this retiree from IBM who was in management. And God, he taught me so much about just pure management, about core values and things like that. I mean, he just really opened up a new life for me too. So I was very blessed in those areas, that I had mentors. And one of his big deal is you got to know your numbers, Ken, So we started creating metrics and looking at, and I hired like 5 years into it, I hired a fractional CFO to come in and had no experience with that, but he could sit down, even though we were a contingency firm, and which goes up and down a lot. He could sit there and look at my average time on desk and look at my average fee and figure out what my income was going to be, right, based on the metrics. I mean, it would be within 10% every year. He could tell me what I was going to make. And that was pretty good because when you have those low months, you have this, your heart goes down into your stomach because you think you're going to lose it all, right?
Right. Well, and you hear from PI lawyers all the time or contingency firms all the time that, it's unpredictable. I don't know, because it depends on the cases that come through the door. But yet you look at all the successful firms, and certainly I've read books written by PI lawyers, and y'all can predict because you can predict based on the marketing you do, how many people should be calling. Of those, what your percentage rate is closing. And then you, of course, value the cases. And I assume you're doing that as part of the intake, not after you've decided that, there'll be a client.
Oh, yeah.
So...
yeah, we had like 3 times that the lawyer had to go in and do evaluation so I could pull a report and say, okay, potentially I got this much value in the firm that I'm sitting on. It would be close, 10, 15% off. But also had a meeting every month, 5 o'clock on Tuesday with all my lawyers. And they had to we brought in what they brought in last month. And we had a list. And then I gave a chicken to the guy that did the least. A dead chicken, a rubber chicken. And he had to put in his office. A little peer pressure.
I love it. Pressure. And today you hear all the time, oh, you can't share that stuff publicly. That's disgracing people. I love the chicken idea. It's a nice visual that, man, you came in last.
Yeah. Yeah. And they had to put it on their desk. And, but they got to be really good at projecting what the income was going to be for that month. And so if I was going to have a bad month, I had the CEO, can I help me for the big picture? But as far as the micro, I got them to where they were really close. I said, it's got to be an 80% chance of selling and deposited. And it took them 3 or 4 or 5 months, but then they really got good at it. And I could sit there and project. It was good. And then I would also teach something about managing their employees. So it would last about an hour and a half, take them out to dinner, go through that stuff, what they did, what they were doing. And we had metrics like I sat down with each lawyer and we would sit down and say, okay, what can you do? What kind of income can you bring me in? Your caseload. And let's set it up quarterly. And if you make it, I'm going to give you a bonus on top of everything else. But you got to share it with your staff. And I said, you can come up with it, but I got to approve it because you're not going to put it all in your pocket. Okay. You got to at least share 50% up with your staff. And it might be back then, 10,000 was a lot of money. It's probably not now, but back then it was. But there was another metric on it that they had to do. And they had to call every client every 45 days. And if they didn't, then they had to meet 90%. If they didn't, even if they met their financial goals, they didn't get the bonus. Only happened once. I had one lawyer, it was 88%. And he didn't make it. And then he just raised holy hell because I said, listen, he said, it won't be 2 points. I said, that's right. I said, but I said, that got to be a cutoff point sometime. I said, right. teams have won Super Bowls with 2 points. I said,
yeah,
there's got to be a cutoff. I said, I hate it. But you know what? He got it right the rest of the time and everybody else heard about it. And they said, damn, Ken will do it over 2 points. He was serious about it. But that was part of we were real big client service oriented. Even though I spent loads of money, we had a client bill of rights. We had a advocates hotline they could call if they had any problem with anybody in the firm. We had I call it the 100% client satisfaction guarantee. Now, not guaranteed with what they would get, but guaranteed with how we were treating them in their case. And I put that on the TV, and with the same buy, my calls went up 23%, like overnight.
Oh my goodness!
Because we took away the risk. The deal was it was 30 days. So what they don't know is they could fire you anytime they wanted to, and you could get quantum merit. But what you going to get in 30 days? You're just getting the file set up. You're not really doing any work, but you're getting everybody put on notice. You're getting the file set up. And all the lawyers, I got 2 bar complaints from lawyers saying that I was unethical. And of course, the bar just dismissed. I'd already run it by the bar. I knew it was going to happen.
Sure.
I said, I'm not guaranteeing results. I'm just guaranteeing that if we're not happy, they can get the file.
Sure. Well, and the thing is, not only does it, those 45-day phone calls, stay in touch with your clients so that way they're not filing bar complaints, because that's the number one reason, is because we don't get back with our clients. But it actually enriches the relationship between your lawyer and the client, which helps representation. And it's marketing. It's free marketing. There's soft cost of the lawyer calling them, but it's free marketing because they're going to be telling all their friends about it. That's classic. Now, the rubber chicken and the hard deadlines, is that how you hire and keep 18 players? Is that part of being able to keep people?
I think the A players want that. They want a scorecard. They want a scoreboard. They want to know what it is your expectations are. I think they want feedback. I think that's why they have scoreboards. You really A players, they want to be winners. And so they want to know what it takes to be a winner in your firm. Mm-hmm. And if you give them that information, I think they strive for it. I don't think your C players want that, but you don't want you don't C players anyway. So who cares?
No, you don't.
And by the way, the paralegals had to call every 30 days. So the lawyer every 45, paralegals every 30. So they were getting touched at least 1.5 times a month, hopefully. Well,
it sounds like you built an incredible business that anybody would want to work at. So why would you want to leave that? Why did you sell it?
I woke up one morning and I just didn't feel excited about going to work. And I thought about it. I said, why? And then I just said, I started thinking, getting very analytical about purpose in life and what I was going to do, and
were you like 52 years old or,
No, I was probably about 47, 48.
Okay. All right. So in range. All right.
Yeah, something like that. But I was getting bored too. I love building things. I love the challenges. But once I get it conquered, I get bored unless there's new challenges. And we kind of had it running like a sewing machine. Mm-hmm. And like I said, not because of me, because I had a lot of good people. Mm-hmm. And that's wise guy, Bern Harnish, told me, he said, no business was ever built on the back of average employees. You got to have A players, at least 50% A players. If you can, more if you can. But he said it's hard to find more than that. He said, but if you can find them, he said, they're going to know what's going to take you. He said, you can't, once you get past $1 million, and past $10 million, you can't. He said, you can get up to $10 million off of pure grit, Ken. He said, but once you get past that, man, you got to have really good people, good management people, and people that, like he said, are A players who are, I don't know if you ever read, what's the guy, he said, A players are players that are humble but confident. Mm-hmm. They know how to talk to people and not make them mad. And they are hungry, but not for money per se, for professional growth. They want to grow personally and in the company. And I think people now, they want to be part of something bigger, which I think a law firm doing PI work is a perfect place for an A player, because you are doing a lot of good. You're something on much bigger. You're making a difference in the world. You're stopping big corporations from killing people, and environmentally, and the mass torts and the malpractice and all this stuff. And I don't know. I just think it's a worthy cause. But I just got bored with it, to be honest with you. Yeah, I was going to go down to Myrtle Beach and retire in 6 months, and I was going nuts. So
yeah. Well, it sounds like, so walk me through this if you had any mental analysis about this part, because it sounds like it's a great passive income opportunity, a great business to own, but not have to show up to every day. And that would get me excited is, hey, I can still make all this money and I don't have to show up. Did that cross your mind before you sold it? And why did you, if it did, why did you choose to sell it instead of keep it as a passive income?
It did not.
Okay.
And people asked me about any regrets in your life. I said, I wish I'd held on about 25% of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's good for our listeners to hear. And that's why I asked you that question, because I don't think people do think about it.
No, you don't. And I just said, well, I'm just going to move down there. I don't want to be bothered with it. I want to cash out. Mm-hmm. I'll do something else.
So how did you find your seller? I mean, your buyer. How'd you find your buyer?
Well, that was very fortunate. I actually decided to sell it in like 2006 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
And it was my partner at the time. And he had a very small percentage that I give him with sweat equity. He was a really good producer. In fact, his third year as associate, he made more money than I did because I paid him commissions.
Mm-hmm.
No, this is no lie. He made $350,000. I made $250,000.
Mm-hmm.
But he generated over $2.5 million worth of revenue. I was glad to pay him.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? But it was one of those years with the cash flow. So he was a producer. So how I did it, I presented it to him. I said, but I got to make sure you can hold this together.
That is the biggest fear from a seller, right?
Yeah, if you're not going to pay me cash up front, and most buyers, although it's a little easier now to get the money, but for PI firms anyway, because of the I call it the Wall Street money, but it's 18% interest or whatever, 16, 18, probably 20 now. But if not, they can run it in the ground. And so what I did, I set it up to where I said, I'm going to start working just 4 days a week in 2007, 3 days a week in 2008, 2 days a week in 2009. And if everything goes good, and this way these people will start going to you more and more, and I'm going to say you're the managing partner now, I'm backing off. You're going to call the shots. You can call me anytime you want to. Not, I'll be at the beach because I love the beach.
Right.
And so he did do it. I wanted to make sure he could hold it together and that it wouldn't, and he was still ready to do it. So in 2010, we signed the paperwork. I financed it for 5 years. We had to go back. It probably been 3 years, but I wanted it to be a win-win. I wanted him to still make some money.
Sure. And
if I'd done it in 3 years, it probably would have put a little bit too much stress on him. And I wanted it to be a good deal for him too. So yeah, that was the deal. The second one was completely different. The second one was I was speaking somewhere, telling my story, just like I just told you today.
Right.
And the lawyer raised his hand and said, well, Ken, I don't have access to $500,000. He said, I can't do what you did. I said, okay. I said, how much do you have that you can spend on marketing a month? He said, maybe 5,000 or 6,000. I said, okay. I said, well, you can still do it. He said, I just don't believe it. So I got to think about it. It was a challenge. So I went out. I was in South Carolina, so I didn't have bar license here, but I did have a Social Security practice. I tried a bunch of Social Security cases too. I started Social Security practice with only $6,000 a month budget for marketing. Started from nothing down here where I knew nobody. And in 2 years, I had 800 cases.
Oh my!
Did a lot of grassroots marketing, a lot of before it was big video stuff. Bought leads. I created a book. Did an infomercial that I ran only like 3 times a month. That I was pushing out my book and then doing a follow-up series, and I was getting Social Security cases for like $200 a pop, which was a good price because the average fee was like $3,300.
Right.
So that's a good ROI. That's good. It's almost 10 to 1. And I always preach 6 to 1. Some of my competitors preach 5 to 1. I preach 6 to 1. If you get 5 to 1, then you're still okay, right?
Right.
But you need to be shooting 6 to 1, and if you can get more than that, go for it. But when somebody tells me that they doubled or tripled their money they spent on marketing, I say, you lost money because it just costs too much to run a business. And the masterminds I run, I actually make them fill out a paper every time we have a meeting, and they have to put down what percentage of your gross went to paying lawyers, what percentage of your gross went to paying staff, what percentage of your gross went to marketing. And I do that just to get them to see it. Plus, I think a healthy firm, eating PI, I can't speak for other areas of practice because I don't know those as well, but I say keep your lawyer compensation under 20%, your staff compensation under 20%, and your marketing really depends anywhere from 5% to 25%. It really depends on what growth mode you're in. I had years where I spent 25%. I had years where I was revamping because every time you double a practice, you really got to revamp the whole system. Really, because it's just different. You got different problems.
Well, you would probably have a heart attack then on some people that come to me in the beginning for our coaching services that, they've got an agreement with their lawyers where they're paying their lawyers 50% of everything that they work on and stuff like that. I'm like, what? 50%? I'm like, how do you make any money off that?
No, you can't. It's hard.
But it sounds like, you building your practices that, first of all, just sounds like you're a marketing genius. But second, that also you really enjoy the mentorship and the teaching and stuff like that. Is that what led you to create PILMA?
Yeah, it was. I was getting a lot of calls down here at the beach. How did you do that? How'd you do this? How'd you do that? And my mom said, can you start charging these people?
Mm-hmm.
I said, I don't mind. And I said, okay. So I kind of was like a hobby from 2011 to 2013. And then like 2014, I did like $1 million without even trying in business. I said, this could be a real business. I said, this could really be a real business. I mean, people need this. They're wanting this. So I started PILMA, and I had experience with Dan Kennedy. He ran an info business. I said, but I don't want to do done for you. I said, because the lawyers always got to blame somebody when the marketing don't work.
Right.
And they're going to blame whoever the vendor is. And at 90% of the time, it's because their intake is terrible. Because I could talk about intake for 3 or 4 hours.
Well, I will have you back on to talk about that then.
Well, because that's the biggest leakage.
It is.
I always tell law firms, I don't care who they are or what they are. I said, I guarantee you I can go there and save you 10 times what you're going to pay me to go spend 2 days with you. Because I know their intake's terrible. I mean, and I usually do about 3 or 4 ghost calls and record them and show them to them, and then they get sick, but that's where the money is wasted. I think lawyers waste, especially PI lawyers, because I'll be honest with you, it's probably the most lucrative practice there is because, I mean, I call it, a machine to print money. I mean, really, and that's why they've always been terrible business people because they don't have to worry about it. They could be terrible businessmen and still make $1 million, or make 15, 20%, being terrible. But I got some guys in my masterminds that are making 30, 35, 40, 45%, and they're spending big money on marketing, but they really got their numbers down. They run efficiencies. They're taking advantage of this AI. They're taking advantage of offshore. They run it like a business. I mean, and they're watching their numbers weekly, monthly.
And that's the difference is that they are running it like a business versus just being an attorney who's taking whatever cases they can and all that kind of stuff. So PILMA, it sounds like you've got a mastermind through PILMA, and then you'll also do live summits where you have people come in and speak and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What can somebody expect to receive as part of the experience of being a member of PILMA?
I got 2 levels of membership. I got gold and I got mastermind. Gold is basically we do a monthly magazine. And I can tell you what people like the most because I do a survey every year. They like our listserv. Our listserv is where you can get on there with anybody that's a member and say, hey, what do you think about this vendor? Or, hey, I'm having this problem. Or, hey, I got a case from Indiana. Anybody in Indiana want to take this case? They love that because they can vet vendors. And they can, because they'll say, yeah, you need a run. These people are terrible. They'll promise you the moon and do nothing. Or, oh, they're great. They under promise, over deliver. So that's number one. We have a monthly magazine. It's about 30, 40 pages. I write a couple articles. I'll get other people, experts to write articles. Love for you to write an article about buying businesses or selling and what you do because I like to educate the people. Then we have monthly intake training. And I got somebody actually just, a new person is somebody that you interviewed on intake, Carrie Colby White. So she's going to be our intake trainer. She's agreed to do that for me.
Right.
And we have a monthly roundtable session on a different topic every month on marketing and on management. And then anybody that's a member or anybody in your firm can show up, do like a 30, 40-minute presentation and then have a roundtable discussion. And sometimes it runs over an hour. I do a monthly Q&A. I did mine today where I get on Zoom for an hour, answer anything anybody's got. If I can't answer it, I'll try to find somebody like you and get the answer and send it to them. And then they get a discount to our annual summit, which we hold in New Orleans in May. And it's like 2.5, 3 days. Some days I put something extra, like the time you went. We had a thing on buy and sell law firms. Every once in a while I'll do something. I see what people are talking about. I try to go what's the hot topics. Right now, AI is the big deal right now.
Yeah, it is.
It was offshore before that. Now it's AI. So it's always something, it's hot. So that's all that. And then we have a level, which I think is the best. And of course, it's a lot more expensive, but the deal is I've seen people in our masterminds. I'm a big proponent of masterminds. I actually wrote a book on it, The Mastermind Effect. And the reason I did that is because I started masterminds back in 2005, even before I started PILMA. I read Napoleon Hill, Grow Rich, or whatever, Grow and Think Rich. And I'm big into all this stuff, and I really studied about, and I was in 2 or 3 masterminds with like Dan Kennedy, Jay Abraham, a bunch of other different people. And they help because they shortcut your knowledge. What I'm saying is you can figure out what's not working, what's working. You can take your stuff there. You're with like-minded people who want to help each other. And I got different groups. I got like 5 different groups. I got one for law firms doing under 2 million, one for doing 2 to 10. I got 2 for doing 2 to 10, and I got 2 doing over 10 million. And they have different problems. They have different sets of problems. So I try to situate them. It's market exclusive, so you don't have to worry about it. You can be, have to sign a non-disclosure agreement. We meet 3 times a year in nice exotic places. I think next year we're meeting in Key West, Lake Tahoe, and Asheville, North Carolina. So, we go to places like that. I mean, we just got back from Las Vegas. The summer we were in Nashville. We go to Vail. We've been to Jackson Hole. We go to really nice places.
Just sounds like, your organization, PILMA, there's something for everybody, for PI lawyers especially. But even if you're not a PI lawyer, it sounds like your book, The Mastermind Effect, would be great for all business owners, specifically lawyers of any type, to read that. And so I'm glad that that's available as well. Well, Ken, if there was just one thing that you would want our listeners to take away with today, what would that nugget be?
I've really thought about this, and talking about me being a millionaire maker, I got 2 thoughts I want to leave people with. When I first started practicing law, it was all about the money. I changed, and people say, well, once you make money, it's not as important. But, well, here's the deal. It is, but money does not make you happy. I made a lot of money, I was miserable. And I made a lot of money, and I'm happy. And the deal is, money gives you freedom to do what you want to do, with whom you want to do it, when you want to do it with. If I got somebody I don't want to mastermind, I don't worry about that fee. I say, you're a butthole. I don't want you in here. I don't have to deal with you. If I got a client that I want to coach, he's being a butthole. I ain't going to deal with you. It gives me freedom. If I want to take off, I took off 3 weeks and went to Europe with my wife. I didn't touch the office, so be it. It gives me freedom. But you do have to have money to be able to get the freedom. So I guess it is important, right? But I don't think money in and of itself makes you happy. I think a lot of times people use it as a measuring stick. And Vern Harnish, he's one of my mentors too right now. And I got certified in scaling up, so I'm all into this. It's in my head now for the last 2-3 years. He said, revenue is for vanity, profit is for sanity, but cash flow is king. And I thought, man, how epic is that? That is the truth. And then the last thing is, I really thought about looking at my lawyers. Some of them are just killing it. I had one lawyer, I was just looking at him. When he joined the mastermind in 2013, he was doing $300,000 a year. He's going to do over $10 million this year. What's the difference in him and another guy that joined the mastermind and then quit after 2 years? And he's probably still doing what he was doing. And it's focus and grit. What I'm saying is, if you're an entrepreneur, the big deal, and I think you're one and I'm one, our biggest challenge is not getting sidestepped by all these shiny objects and getting pulled away. I don't know if I have that problem.
I used to have that problem. Yeah.
I've worked on it. I'm doing a lot better.
Yeah.
I said, no more businesses. I mean, my CEO says, no more businesses. My wife says, no more businesses. We've got enough. We've had enough. What do you got to prove, And that
is hard for entrepreneurs because we do like to build. We do like to start new things because that's where our passion is. And then we let others take it on and grow it and, things like that. But focus and grit.
And grit, I think that was me. I don't think you got to be the smartest person. I proved that to be successful. I never have been like, I went to a small college that nobody even ever heard of. But the deal is I never had a client ask me where I went to law school or whether I was on law review. And I was on law review. But I never had nobody ask me in 30-something years. They asked me, can you help me? But I think the grit is, and I think law school kills it sometimes because they teach you to look out for the worst things that can happen. And my deal is, when I see something as an obstacle, I'm trying to think, well, I can't do it that way, but can I go around it? Can I go over it? Can I go under it? I don't look for ways it can't work. I look for ways it can work. And I think it's mindset. And I see the lawyers that say, and this is the other one. I've really been on a big kick on this the last 2 months. Every lawyer's got the same amount of time. Got same minutes, same seconds, same hours, same days, same months, same years. So why is it when you hear a lawyer says, well, I'd like to do that, Ken, I just don't have time? It actually makes me mad now, because here's the deal. We all have time for what's important to us. It's just not as important to you. And it's just admit that.
It's all priorities.
Yeah, and that's okay. I mean, if it's not important to you, then don't waste my time, because if it's not important to you, it's not going to be important to anybody else, right? I tell lawyers that with their staff. I said, if you put out all these things, but you don't like it, it's important, and don't push it and have the vision. I said, they sense it. They're not going, if you don't care or don't think it's important, they're not either. They're going to go on and do something else. So I think those are like my key little things, my pet peeves, or things that I've looked at and looking over the years of lawyers that made it really good with me, and some don't. You know, listen, I can lead over a horse to water, but I cannot make him drink out of the trough.
That is true.
You know, I mean, you just can't. You know that. You're coaching. You know what I'm talking about.
And I have horses, so I absolutely know what you're talking about. Well, you have years and years of experiential wisdom, and thank you so much for bringing that with you today and sharing that with our members.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. I invite all of our listeners to become a member of our private Facebook group called The Art of Buying and Selling Law Firms, where we provide valuable insight, like Ken's today, into how to build a practice and then sell it. Lawyers do not have to have any present interest in selling their law firm to be a member of the group. They can also find out more information at our website, quidproquolaw.com. And I recommend that you go to pilma.org/mastermind to find out more information about Ken and Pilma. And this show is available 24/7 online, anywhere you listen to podcasts, as well as on our website. You have been listening to Smart Lawyers Position and Transition, which is a weekly show bringing timely and valuable information to lawyers seeking to sell or buy